Hi, this is Gwen Hess. I'm a senior technical trainer with Uninet University, and I'm very happy to welcome you all to our webinar today. I am joined on this call by Jade Hampton, who's one of our customer success managers. Hi, Jade, you there?
I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Okay, great. Jade will be helping me out today by monitoring the question queue. So if you have questions as we're going through, please go ahead and type in the questions, your questions in the question queue. If there are quick answers, she might give you an answer back, or we'll be certainly doing questions later on in the webinar as well. So our webinar today is titled Managers Questions Answered. So our topic today is in regards to the questions that managers ask. Now, when we talk about managers, we're talking about those people who have the manager role in Uninet. So those people who have are approving time and expenses, approving leave, that type of manager. So managers have lots of questions. There's lots of things that you need to know. Okay, maybe it's like who hasn't submitted their timesheet, or maybe who hasn't even started to enter their timesheet. Who's scheduled to take vacation in the next few months? When do they have that scheduled for? So, wow, did they even have enough vacation accrued when I approved that request? Maybe we're also needing to know what was last month's billable utilization for the team. Was everyone working, at the utilization percentage that we expect out of a professional services organization? Or did we have some people that didn't have anything to do because they weren't scheduled appropriately? So are they actually working at full capacity? What are they working on? What are they working on, this month? Or maybe what are they working on today, right now? How do I know how to find that? Our company's been growing so much and so many new people have joined. I don't even hardly know who's on my team that I'm supposed to approve. Who are they? Well, between all of this, sometimes it's just enough to keep you awake at night. So let's take a look at some of those reports and things that we can go ahead and set up on our dashboards so that we're able to manage our day and our people appropriately. First, let's take a look at a timesheet status chart. So the timesheet status pie chart is one of the easiest and coolest things to be able to set up, because this allows you to get a very quick view right on your dashboard of what are those timesheet statuses for the people that are reporting to you. On any one of these areas that we see here, we could just hover in that, and it would tell us the number of people and the percentage out of all of our group that have a timesheet in that status. For example, here, there are 58% of the people of this team have an in-use time sheet. We also could drill down into that and see within any one particular section who are the people. So by drilling into that missing section of the pie, we're able to see here are the 3 people who have not yet even started doing their timesheet. I could drill down into another part of the chart by clicking on back to chart, and I'd be able to drill down into the submitted, for example, here. So I see that Bob Costas has submitted his timesheet, and over on the right-hand side, I can see what approvals that this timesheet is still waiting on. So you see, this is really a powerful report just to be able to get that quick look at what's going on with people and their timesheets, as well as knowing what might be awaiting approval and who those approvers are. Now, let's think about those leave schedules. Because we've got people who are looking forward to taking that vacation. And so let's look at what reports can give us some information. Well, certainly there is a leave request status report. And this looks very much like that timesheet status report, except this one is looking at leave requests. So just like a timesheet, leave requests go through the same approval process and the same type of statuses. So by looking for a status of completed or locked, meaning that these are fully approved or even locked down, we know that these are indeed the approved leave requests out there. So this is one way in which we could look and see that those are out there. If you have a portfolio license, you also have another report called the People Leave Request that you could run. You could run it by weeks or months or quarters and see which people and how many hours that they had in there for their leave requests. Again, I'm looking at a completed and locked status, so I know that these are approved leaves. So one of the important things too is when someone submits a leave request is one of the questions you're going to have is, do they have enough vacation time for me to approve this leave? Or maybe they are putting a leave request in that's kind of out into the future, and you need to be able to ascertain, will they have accrued enough leave by the time that they're going to take this planned vacation. So if we look at a People Accrual Details report, I can see here a lot of information regarding those time that they have available to them. So I went ahead and show here, there is listed at the top the available hours. So up here on the available hours, I'd be able to see whether this individual has currently enough time. Well, Jimmy Fallon, which is the user here, has 200 hours available. In fact, when I look at this detail, I see that Jimmy's actually capped out. In this example, we have a cap set at 200 hours, so he cannot accrue more vacation once he's got 200 hours of vacation sitting out there. So certainly he has plenty of time to be able to take. Now, if I look down here at Matt Lauer, I see that Matt currently only has 16.11 hours available. Well, one of the things that we noticed when we looked at those leave request reports was that Matt Lauer was listed as taking a week off at the end of March. So now it's like, is he going to have 40 hours accrued before the end of March? By making a change on our selection criteria on this People Accrual Details, we can actually ask for it to show us the projected hours out into the future. So I ran this looking at the current quarter, so I was able to see everything projected out through the end of March when he had that scheduled vacation. And it looks like he's not going to have those 40 hours available at the end of the month. So I now know that I should be talking to Matt about how he's going to be taking some unpaid leave if indeed he needs to take off that entire week, because he's only going to have 28.42 hours in the bucket. Another thing that managers want to know about their people is what is their billable utilization. UNet is used a lot by professional services organizations who very frequently set a utilization percentage for the people in their organizations. So it's important that we're able to know, have our people been meeting our expectations? So we can run a manager resource allocation report looking into the past which is going to be looking at our actuals. And by doing this, we can see, and I broke this out by week, what the utilization percentage was for each week. So now I can take a look at my people. These are two separate organizations here, and see what each individual's billable utilization was, as well as a total within that particular organization. And then I also can look at a grand total at the bottom of what my overall company's billable utilization was. So this one looks like we probably had a lot of people sitting on the bench in January because they weren't providing a lot of billable utilization in our numbers here. We also might be wanting to look into the future. What do I expect people's utilization to be, because we want to know who has bandwidth for us to give them additional assignments, or maybe, like Bob Costas down here, maybe who is a little bit too overloaded that we might need to look at, should we shift some of his work to somebody else? So this is looking, in this case, this is looking forward at plans. I also could have, been looking at assignment budgets if I was not utilizing plans within Uninet. So these are a couple of really useful views off of the same report, so that we can either look backward and see what our utilization was, or look forward to determine, do I need to find some work for this grouping of people to do. Also, I want to know some specifics about what my people are working on. So do I have particular assignments that are going on for them? So I can look at a people schedule details report, and this is going to tell me person by person what project and task that they are assigned to. I have that period of performance that they're assigned to that project or task. And if I put in any budget, I would be able to see what they were budgeted for that time. And if I had actuals, I would see that, those actual numbers. A little later, we're going to be going into Uninet and taking a look at examples of these reports and at some of the criteria. So we'll be looking at that, and you'll see how these types of things get pulled together as we're doing that. So from here, I was saying, what assignments are there for next month? So it's showing me anything that includes next month in this period of performance. If you are on our portfolio license, you also have the ability to look at that people's schedule from a calendar viewpoint. So here I'm looking at this from a calendar view to see who is assigned on each of these dates and to what project. So I have a row for Donna Admin, I have a row for Chris Berman, and so on and so forth. So I see what it is that they have assignments for each of those days. Either one of these two reports that I've just shown to you has the capability in the criteria of just running it on today. So we could just run a report saying, what is this person have within their assignments for today as well. Another portfolio report that we could look at is a people periodic forecast. This one here, I'm combining looking at both hours and budgets that I have. So as I'm looking across this time frame, and I just did this month over month, I can see, for example, Jimmy Fallon has got an assignment onto this upgrade project, and I am combining both actuals and budgets in this grouping here, because the asterisk tells me the actuals and the plus tells me the budgets. And so, of course, moving out into the future, these are budgets because they are in the future, and I know from the visual cue of the little plus symbol that I'm looking at budgets for those. So this is another example of what we might look at of what we're forecasting people to be working on, but we're also including actuals for up to this point in time. So we also said a lot of times you'll have these growth spurts and you'll have a lot of new people coming into your organizations. So as they get added on to approval groups, how do you know who all's in your approval group now until you actually see their timesheet or expense report come across? So there's a really great report within Uninet that you can run under the reports dashboard. In the reference submenu, there is a report called the Approval Group Details. And within here, a manager can run this report to see who all is in their approval groups. So Mary Manager here has run this report, and she's able to see all of those that she's approving expenses and all of those people that she is approving time. So yeah, looks like her team's growing out quite a little bit there. Of course, one of the most important things about having reports available to you is actually having them at your fingertips. Something where it's easy for you to go and pull a report and get that information without having to always go in and find the report on the dashboard, put in the same selection criteria, because very much makes a difference as to what criteria you're using. So once you actually have a report that it looks the way you want it, you have the ability to save that criteria. And you can save that on any of your dashboards, and then it becomes available to you just one click to be able to get to it. We're going to look at that in a moment too within Uninet. But really kind of the best way maybe to get reports are when you have admins who have created a repository of shared reports within Uninet, and you're able to go and get those and just pull them onto your dashboard. So if you're on a dashboard, you can click on config, and it doesn't matter whether you do really the one up here or the one down here. Both of them will ultimately get you to the same place. And you come up to this preferences page where you have an ability to say, let me look at those shared reports that are out there, find the ones that you want, and just move them over to the right-hand side of which ones that you want to have available to you. And the really great thing about this is when everybody is using the same report that has been put together and saved into the shared repository, this means that everyone who runs that report really is singing off the same sheet of music. So, you know, it's a wonderful thing when you have those harmonies all come together. So even though you aren't looking at the exact same data, because you have different managers who have different people, you are all looking at that data in the same way so that you're running billable utilization reports that have the same criteria, so that when you're sitting down together in a meeting with your upper management, you are looking at apples to apples, not looking at across things that are very different. So in Uninet, we always like to say the power of the saved reports is the ability to really, everyone's playing off the same sheet of music. So the next thing I want to do is to take a look into Uninet. But Jay, do we have any questions that we ought to stop and take at this point in time before we get in?
Hi, Gwen. We do have a couple of questions. Let's see. It would be helpful to show the criteria selected to run some of these reports. Are we going to go through that now?
Yes, that's part of what we're going to be doing, yes.
Okay, perfect. Next question was, for utilization reports, can we see a sum of assignments and plans on the same report?
Some of assignments and plans on the same report. You can see, well, let's take a look at that when we get into it, because we can see the totals of those plans and the actuals of where they currently are. So let's take a look at some reports we get in there.
Okay, one more question. Regarding forecast versus actuals, is there a report that shows projects someone is forecasted, assigned to work on, versus what they actually worked for the same period?
I believe we can see that on one of our performance reports. So let's go ahead and dig into these reports and see if we get all these questions answered. I am going to stop and ask for questions again, and we'll come back and see if we've addressed everything that people needed on these questions as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jade. All right. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to switch my screen over to Uninet, and we're just going to kind of step through all of these different reports that we've kind of taken a look at and show, okay, well, how do we get to those, and how do we also save them off onto our pages. So the first thing I had here, you'll see I've set up this dashboard, and I'm logged in, as you'll see at the bottom here. I'm logged in as Molly Manager. I'm in here as, make it a little bigger. I'm logged in here as someone who has the manager role and who has people that are reporting to her. And so we'll see when I come in, I've added on a couple of these time status pie charts so that they just show immediately on my dashboard. And of course, I have my regular things like my own timesheets, expense reports, and I have my approval group queue down here that I've left at the bottom. So by having these charts here on the page, I can just immediately see information here. Even just hovering right here, I can get detail about how many people there are in each of these portions of the pie. But I can also just click right into that right there, and it's going to take me to just a view of the timesheet status report. So I see those people right there immediately, so I know who was missing putting in a timesheet. I also recommend that for managers, you have a version of this that's for your current period, because this is our current time that people are entering their timesheets into, as well as one that's looking at the previous period as well. So that was the period prior to the one that we're currently in. Because this is the one that very often you're doing approvals in, is that previous one, and the current one is certainly where you're keeping an eye out for, why haven't they created a timesheet yet? Because we need to be DCAA compliant, and people need to have those timesheets created. And here we are on Thursday of a weekly timesheet period. So this is very handy to have this up here. The way that you would pull information over here from like a saved report, and I'm just going to, like I say, I can go into any of these configs really. The one I go into is where it lands me at. So I came into the chart ones. These charts were ones that were in the repository, and I simply picked them from the left and moved them over to the right and hit save. And I also have told it over here which dashboard that I want that on. So I could, if I wanted these over on my people dashboard, because maybe I do more work over there, I certainly could take both of these, move them over and save. And now when I go to my people dashboard, they're there as well as having them on my home dashboard. So I won't beleaguer moving things over from the saved shared reports. I just wanted to step through that once for you. Also, when you have a graphic up here like this, there is a little icon here that says display a larger version. If I go into that and then say click in, then I have this ability just to go right back to my chart. And so I don't have to go like back to the home page and then drill down through again. So I just wanted to show you that as well, because a lot of times you might put other charts out here, like maybe a billable utilization, and you'd want to look at that from a little bit bigger perspective to make it easier to read. Okay? So those are our timesheet statuses that I have up here. Now, a leave schedule. Now, we talked about there's a leave request report, and I happen to put this one just on my my report listing on the dashboard. This is that one that comes with the portfolio license. It just sort of lists out month over month type of thing. Or I could use another one. Now what I did was I said, you know, I want to create, in this instance, my own leave request type of report. So when I did that, and let me go in, I'm just going to run it and then I'm going to go into the criteria and show you what I did. So here I see I've got Jimmy Fallon and Matt Lauer both planning to take that final week of the month off. We know from looking at things before that Jimmy had plenty of hours and Matt does not. But this is their request thus far. So if I go back to the criteria screen, again, for a leave request, I said I'm more interested in seeing those that are actually approved, so they're in that completed or locked status. I'm looking at this one for the current quarter. But once you have a report that you have created criteria on that you would like to save, you just click on the Save Criteria. A pop-up window presents itself to you, and you can give it whatever name you want and put it on whichever dashboard that you want. I'm going to cancel out of that. So on our dashboard, any reports that you have saved for yourself will be in this grouping here called My Reports. Any that you've picked from that shared repository will be here under Shared Reports. Okay. So one other thing too is I created one of these, a version that was for the current quarter. I also created one for the next quarter. Right now I don't have anybody who has any approved leave requests in there. Oops. But I also created one that I just called Anticipated Leave, because you have the ability to look at other statuses as well. So maybe somebody has submitted or they're creating one currently and haven't yet submitted it. So I just created one that I called Anticipated Leave, just so I can start eyeballing, oh, look here are 3 people who are all planning to take off the last week of December. So do I need to start planning that I'm going to be really short-staffed, or do I need to be anticipating these coming in and maybe having some discussions with my team on staggering their time off? So I also, like I say, I created one here just called Anticipated Leave so that I can be a little more proactive on what might be coming in to my queue. Okay. All right, so let's look now at that accrual details. So here I brought a report over from that shared repository again called Accrual Details. And here I am seeing for all of my team, all the people that report to me as their manager, a listing of their accruals through to today. So I'm seeing what they've got available. So if Matt Lauer, well, let's use somebody else because we've used Matt a lot. So Peyton Manning said he wanted to take some time off. He's got 200 hours out there available to him. So I can see all of that. Now, the one thing that I showed in the PowerPoint example was that I might want to see what they have coming into the future as well. It looks like everybody here has been working really hard and they've all capped out on their hours available. But I want to go look and see what Matt Lauer is going to be accruing. So if I go back to my criteria on a people accrual details here, there is a reporting option down here that says, let me include projected accruals. So if I select that, and let's just look at Matt Lauer, and I run that report, now I see what is projected out, and I ran it just for the current quarter. I see what's projected out to the end of this quarter, because it tells me that in italics. Let's run it actually through the end of the year. let's just say current year, so that you can see that what it's doing is it's going out and it's looking at all of the scheduled accrual posts and what would be added on to Matt's accrual time. So if I look at this, and we know he was also trying to take some time off at the end of the year, if he didn't use anything else in between, he would have 148.42 hours accrued at the end of the year. So when you are having those leave requests come through, it's important to be able to come out and run an accrual details report if you're utilizing accruals in Uninet to be able to see if that individual is going to have enough hours accrued to take the time off when they are requesting it. Now let's start looking a little bit at these utilization reports, okay? So one of the questions we said that people might want to know is, what was the billable utilization for last month, okay? So let me just run this one. This is going to be kind of that same report that I had in the PowerPoint, or a similar one. This one I'm just looking just at last month for a subset of people. And I broke it out week by week. And here I can see what their billable utilization was by seeing here the percentages. Now, the way we're looking at these percentages, how we're calculating those out, is that this is saying, okay, for Diane Sawyer, what was the number of hours that she put in on billable projects? So that's kind of like the numerator, divided by what was her total ability for working. So her business week hours is going to be that denominator. So if we go and look at this criteria screen, we'll see how that's kind of broken out. Like I said, I was just looking at a subset of people there. So we're saying that the project type, because the project type in Uninet is what determines whether something is billable or not. So I had selected just a project type of bill in my system. That's the one that's billable. And then I have my denominator is my capacity. So there I have the capability. In most cases, we're looking at the individual's business week hours. Because if you had someone that only works 32 hours a week for you instead of 40, you wouldn't want to ding them on their utilization, you know, for the hours that they worked, trying to say, you know, bump it up against a 40-hour week when they only work a 32. So that's why our denominator then is that. Now, we can come here and, of course, pick whatever time period that we're wanting to look through and how many periods we wanted to show. I was just doing it by week, and I did the previous month, so I just said, let's show 4. But I then can come down here and I can say, what is it I'm looking at? So since I was looking into the past, I really only wanted to include the actuals. But as we start thinking about running a version of this that is going to be, as we're thinking about running a version of this that is going to be looking into the future, then we can say, do I want to look at this from a plans-only perspective, or do I want to look at this from an assignments-only perspective? And on this report, you're either looking at plans or you're looking at assignments, one or the other. Okay. You do have the, like I say, the capability, if you're doing this over a larger period of time where it would include actuals as well, you can say I want to look at my actuals and my plans, or if you're not using plans and you're using assignments, then you can say let me look at my actuals and my assignments. So we can, you know, show the projects, we can show people. If we wanted to get into a more granular look, we could show the tasks. We could even show the labor categories. The colors down here, you as the the people running the report make a determination of what percentages you want. You know, if I wanted my yellow to actually be from, you know, 40% to 50%, or let's say we wanted to do it from that to that, you can change these and you can change what color it is for each one. So you have control over the percentages as well. So if you have an administrator who is creating, like I said, that shared repository of reports for you, you all probably then have made some sort of a determination across your organization as to what these color percentages will mean. So again, because you're using a report that is in the Save Shared Repository, now everybody, you know, their red percentage means the same thing. Their yellow means the same. Their green means the same. Because maybe the thing you want to look at is not so much that it's red if they aren't being utilized. Maybe you want to look for people that are at 100% and over, that you're marking them as red because you want to be able to try and manage so that they aren't getting burned out. Again, your organization should make a determination on how you want to utilize these percentages and colors. So I changed my percentages a little bit down here. So, you know, if I rerun this, again, I was looking into the past, looking back a month. So now let's think about looking at a version of this into the future. Okay, this one here I have run for, I said let's run it for the next quarter, and that's how I have this one saved, is for it to be looking into the next quarter. And this way I'm able to look and see who has got a lot of things planned. On this one, I am using plans, and I'm saying let me look at my plans. So I'm looking at the plans into the future. It looks like the IT PMO organization doesn't have a lot going on, but I've got quite a bit going on down here in my MICO organization, with the exception of one individual. So we probably need to, maybe he's someone who came on new and I need to plan for him yet. But I also can see those people who have a very large utilization that's being planned for them into the future. Maybe I need to look at getting some help for Bob and for Leslie so that they don't get burned out. So if I go back now and look at the criteria on this, again, you know, my same numerator and denominator explanations are out there. But on this one, I am using plans only. If you aren't doing plans, you could utilize assignments, and I'll go back and run it from an assignment perspective. And let's go ahead and run it like that. So now, if I use it from an assignments, you'll see I don't have a lot of assignments out there yet. You know, I was running it before on the plans, and my assignments are very low here. So this is one, like I say, this one only shows one or the other. Let's go out here and see. I've got another utilization report out here. Let me see what the criteria on this one was. This may not make any difference. Yeah, this one was just using actuals as well. This was a previous quarter one. Now, when you are creating reports, and I don't know if any people that are on the call are admins as well, when you're creating reports for your saved repository, you want to always utilize these relative date values, because, you know, if I say previous quarter, I know if I'm running it here in mid-March of 2017 and I'm looking at the previous quarter, I'm looking at October, November, December 2016. If I run this in mid-April, I'll know I'm looking at January, February, March of 2017. So utilization of these relative date functions is always important when you're doing your reporting. Let's see what the next one was. We had some schedule detail reports as well. Like if I want to know what my team is working on this week, I put together a people schedule detail with the criteria of what are people working on this week. Now, within this, over here we can look at our budget and our actuals and any variance that we might have. We see here that Matt put time against his requirements task on PS upgrade. He so far this week has put in 24 hours on his timesheet. Now we didn't have a budget over here, so we're showing a variance of a negative 24. We may just decided not to put budget hours on that one. But down here, we did have budget hours for Diane Sawyer on the reconstruction project, and she has a bucket of 2,000 hours, and so far she's put in 24, and so we see our variance over here of 1,976 hours still available to her. So this report will show us those actuals as well. So I created another one out here that's looking at what's next week's team schedule looking like. Again, what it's doing is it's looking for the date range, and then it's looking for any of their assignments, because this is reporting on assignments on this one, that's within those periods. So the people schedule details can report on assignments. If you had a need to look at this for plans, you could report on plans as well. For those of you who have portfolio and are doing plans. Now, we also have that capability of not just looking at them from that perspective. We could also look at them from a calendar type of perspective. And let's just do that by going into the reports. Again, the schedule calendar is only available on the portfolio license or greater. So if we go into the schedule calendar, and again, as a manager, I'm looking at my primary approvees, the other abilities here are to see if we're an alternate, we could also create a version that looks at our alternates, or maybe if we have a larger organizational access, we could look across a broader grouping. But in here, you know, again, I could look at plans, or I could look at assignments, and I could say, let me look at next week, let's say, and now I get that calendar view of a report for each person. And sometimes this is a view that people want to have as opposed to the more tabular report view. Okay. So let's also take a look at a couple of other things. In regards to those approval groups, in the PowerPoint, I said that we can go to reports and reference, and we have an approval group details down here. And I run this report, and that's how I find out who all is in my approval group. So let's see what questions that we've got out there. Jade, are you out there?
I am here. We do have one new question. On the People Resource Allocation Report, can you compute utilization with consideration of leave planned, meaning work week minus leave?
Okay, let's look at down here. So down here, we can include leave requests as well. So when we do that, in fact, let's see if we can run one of these where, because we know we've got Matt Lauer out there. Let me change my criteria a little bit. So if we look at Matt Lauer, we know he's got a leave request out there. You know, before we do that, let's make sure we return our data for him. Let's just say current quarter, because that's when he had his. Okay, so we have that out there for him, and now if we say to include leave requests on here, that we still have our 75% for him. Oh, probably because he isn't completely booked. on there. Tell you what, Jade, would you take that down as a question? What we'll do is when we put this recording out onto our Knowledge Center, any of the questions or additional pieces of information that was asked or that we needed to provide in response to that, we'll make sure that we put a little document or some information out there with the answers specifically, or links. More likely it'll be links to a report help page or to a report Knowledge Center entry so that we can get that for you.
I'll make a note of that, Gwen.
Okay, thanks. Do we have other questions that have come across?
That's all I've got here.
Okay. Well, you know, we'll keep an eye on that queue here while I go through a couple of more slides. Also, just wanted to note that in contacting us, if you have any support issues, always contact us at support@uninet.com or at the phone number there on the screen. Also, any other types of questions always can be raised to your Customer Success Manager, formerly known as your Customer Account Manager. So instead of being CAMs, they are now CSMs. And you can always contact your individual CSM or just reach out to them at csm@uninet.com. And we do appreciate you coming and attending this webinar today. This will be recorded and out in the Knowledge Center within the next few days, along with some information on that question that we had regarding utilization and leave plan. And also we'll look for the forecasting versus actual information. So we'll put a couple of links out on that page too. I appreciate your time and attention today. I hope that you'll join us for more of our webinars. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care, everyone.